Coiled notebooks give you a Jupyter notebook running in the cloud that looks very much like your current notebook. So to give you an example of that, I'm going to first start up a Jupyter notebook just on my MacBook Pro. And I see a type in Jupyter Lab. I get a web browser. That web browser points me at the sort of the files that I have in my local directory, which are just living right here. So these are these files. And I can go and I can play with these notebooks. I can open them up. I can run them. This notebook, for example, looks at some information about the machine that I'm running on. I see they've got an 8-core machine. It's a Mac. Darwin is assigned for Mac, and it's the M1 chip. It's an ARM chip. It's a nice modern chip. I got an old version of Python, it looks like. And this looks great. I love my Mac, but sometimes I want something more. Sometimes I want a bigger machine, or I want a machine close to the cloud, or a machine with a GPU. And so what Coiled Notebooks let me do is instead of running Jupyter Lab, I can instead run Coiled Notebook Start, and I can ask for different things. So I might ask for to be in a region. I want to be in US East 2, and I might want a certain VM type. Maybe I want the M7 generation. I'll go for G for the ARM chips, the Graviton chips. Let's go for an 8x large, sizable machine. And this also activate file syncing. So all the files on my laptop will be synchronized also to the cloud bidirectionally. So any change I make in either place will get reflected in the other. And so what Coiled is doing now is it is scraping my MacBook for all of the different packages I have installed, either with Conda or with pip, or packages that I've built locally. I've got some development packages here it's making wheels for. It's going to provision that machine running in the cloud, and then it's going to copy all the files over and then set up a bidirectional sync. This is going to take a minute or two, so I'm going to skip forward in the video. We'll be right back. Yeah, so it's been about less than a minute. It's set up the machine is running. We're now establishing the synchronization agent, and we now have our Jupyter Notebook. Right, so rather than the Jupyter Notebook showing up in 3 seconds, it showed up in a minute and a half, but it's the same experience. I've got my files on the left. I can go and click on that same notebook. The difference now is that when I run that same notebook, the values are going to be different. Right, so rather than 8 cores, I've got 32. I'm still on ARM, it's a different architecture, but still an ARM chip. Instead of running Darwin, Mac OS, I'm running Ubuntu. But I've got the same Python version because we're using the exact same Python versions everywhere. I'm also on the cloud, right? So this machine is sitting on a cloud machine that I can go and play with. So I can access data really close to S3, for example. I've got all the same permissions that I have for my local machine. So also, if I go ahead and say make some file here, I'll open up my file.txt. And I'll write some data into it. Right. I can see I just made this new file here on my cloud machine. What's amazing is that that file also shows up on my laptop. Right. And so Coiled is different from many other cloud notebook services in that we actually treat your machine as the source of truth. Your machine determines what packages we're going to install. It determines what files will be on your cloud notebook. And when you shut down your notebook server, everything else will be synchronized down to your machine. There's no other infrastructure that's running. Right? And so now if I want to now run locally, again, right, I can see that the notebooks that I edited, the files are changed, right? It's the same file we had before. The values I had in my notebook are the same things I had in the cloud. And so it's a really seamless experience between local and remote execution. It also feels very natural. I can edit scripts on my laptop with PyCharm or VS Code, and I can run them in the cloud with a cloud-hosted notebook. So we found this has been very useful for folks to just want a big-ass VM in the cloud, but don't want to deal with a whole lot of setup or moving a lot of their development experience out to the cloud. So hopefully it's useful to you. It's easy to use if you have Coiled. It's easy to set up. Type in Coiled Notebook start, maybe -- sync to get your files. And you'll have a Cloud Notebook in a minute or two. A couple of quick notes to be aware of. The file synchronization does require you to install the mutagen library. On Brew, on Mac, it's very easy to install with this line. Also, if you happen to have a very large file in your directory you're running from, mutagen will try to synchronize that. So if files aren't syncing, we recommend that you scan for any multi-gigabyte data sets. That's it. Hopefully it's useful for you. Let us know. Cheers.